Hey, thanks for stopping by. Robert Kofed with Computer Creations. Today, we're going to do a little bit in LightBurn on how to generate templates from scratch. If you can work on and possess this skill, there's a lot of additional revenue you can generate from all kinds of different avenues. Recently, I had a friend of mine that has a racing quad, and on the front part of his racing quad, he's got kind of a grill cover. And this is the grill cover that he currently had on it. He wasn't real happy with the way it looked. And what he wanted to know is if I could create a template where once we've got the template generated and the mounting holes located, we could put whatever graphic or anything that we wanted to in the middle, and he could have a number of different grill covers to go ahead and put there when he's showing his bike. And so I said, yeah, let me have the grill cover. Let's see what we can do. And so what I've done is I've cataloged the process. It's not hard, but there are a few tricks that if you hang in there with me and you watch this process, you can eat this elephant a bite at a time, and it's not bad at all. Some of the things that we're going to talk about today that we're going to use in LightBurn, we're definitely going to be doing some advanced tracing features. We're going to do some node editing. And then it's just a matter of trial and error, as far as we'll probably go through 3 different versions of this to primarily make sure that the perimeter is the same size as this and that the mounting holes are exactly where they need to be. And that's really the 2 critical things we've got to worry about. The graphics in the middle, that kind of stuff is the easy part. But it's generating an exact copy of this because this is this size fits in his grill cover very specifically, and so we've got to make sure that this matches this, or this matches this, and that the mounting holes are properly aligned, and from there the sky's the limit. Now here's the other thing to think about, is just because we might not make this in a product that we can use with our CO2 laser, that doesn't mean that we could take this pattern that we've generated, export it to like a 3D CAD type program, export it as a DXF drawing, upload it to a online service like Send Cut Send, and you'd be able to make them metal parts that are anodized. And so that's a whole nother revenue stream that you might be able to take an advantage of that you may not have thought about. So let's jump into LightBurn. I'll show you what I've done to take this and turn it into that. And I think if you hang in there with me, you'll learn a little bit. So the first step that we've got to do is we've got to get an ability to do a trace. I would prefer not to have to generate this all by hand. So I'm going to try tracing it. But the key to that is you want to make sure that when you're taking a picture, it's evenly lit, and you've got a contrasting background. So I laid some white pieces of paper on the laser bed, and then just put this down, and I'm going to take a picture with my iPhone and slide it into LightBurn and be able to trace it there. One of the reasons why I kind of like to use my laser bed is it's evenly lit from all the different sides, and therefore we don't get any harsh shadows. So I'm going to take a picture with my phone, we're going to import it into LightBurn, and then we're going to start to trace it. And before you know it, we're going to have an outline we can start to dial in. Okay, the first step we got out of the way. We laid our grill on the bed of the laser under some white paper, and we took a good picture of it without any harsh shadows. You can see that we have some light shadowing going on here, but nothing too specific. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to adjust this image before we get it traced. And I find that if we do this, it makes for a lot better trace. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to come down here to adjust image. This is going to be the original over here. This is going to be the adjusted one here. And one of the things that I want to be able to do is I want to increase my sharpness, which are these 2 sliders here. And you will see, we'll zoom in here. You can see that the holes and all of the perimeters are much more deliberate. And that's what we want to do before we get to tracing this. The other thing that we want to make sure that we do is see how this paper is kind of a gray color, which means there's less contrast between the grill and the paper, and we want as much contrast as we can get. We want to make sure that our image mode is set in grayscale, and you'll see why here in just a minute. And then the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I'm going to increase the contrast to make that paper bright white. And what that'll do is that'll help LightBurn determine what parts we want to trace. And really the only thing I'm concerned about when I want to trace this grill is the perimeter and where these mounting holes are. And you can see that these mounting holes are huge. They're pretty unsightly. I want to get the new template much more refined than that. And so what the goal will be here is that I want to make sure that I get the perimeter accurate and these mounting holes. The rest I could care less about because we're going to regenerate that from scratch anyway. So at this point, I'm going to say, okay, so I've increased the sharpness, I've increased the contrast, and I'm going to say, okay. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this as a bitmap before I trace it. So I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to say Save Processed Bitmap. And I'm just going to save it to my, matter of fact, I've already got it saved. So we just save it to your desktop or wherever. And at this point, what I would do is I'm going to get rid of this one. I'm going to import the one that I just saved. And this is the one I'm going to trace. Now I'm going to shrink this down a little bit. I just want to make sure my aspect ratio is locked so I don't mess up the dimensions. And remember, I'm not worried about scaling this yet. We've got to get a good trace. So I'm going to put this about like this, and then I'm going to go up here to Edit. Tools, Trace Image. And usually there's not a lot I really am too concerned about. We can go ahead and fade the image just to get a better idea on what's going on. Remember, I could care less about this middle part. I want to make sure that I'm capturing the perimeter and all these mounting holes, because that's really the only things I'm going to use in this trace. And you can see that we've got these holes that are traced. We might play with this just a little bit and see if we can clean that up. And I think that does clean that up some. Again, these small holes I'm not worried about. Okay, we're going to have to do some work here. Not a problem. That's where, if you know how to node edit, this thing gets way easier. Yeah, okay, so it looks like that's going to be pretty good. We'll worry about the perimeter. So if I say okay, then I'm going to, before I do anything, I'm going to grab this metal section and pull it over this way. And I'm just going to take this and move it over here in case I need to use it again. So we'll go here. Next, we're going to start to clean up this trace. Okay, let's start to clean up this template. So right now it's grouped. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I want to ungroup this. Anytime you trace something, it's going to group it. I'm going to go from right to left, and I'm going to just start deleting things that I know I'm not going to need. And so what I'm going to do next is I want to make sure that all the mounting holes are available to me. Like if I come over here to my select tool and I click on this, I can see that that's okay. This is a closed shape, so that's okay. And you'll see why I'm doing this here in just a minute. That looks like it's going to work okay. That one, that one, that one. There's one that's missing that's right up here that we'll have to deal with. And this one here. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the outside perimeter line, and I'm going to hold the Shift button down and add to my selection, which is all these different mounting holes. So I'm going to just keep holding the shift button down and clicking all these mounting holes, because here's what I want to do. I want to be able to pull these away from this bunch of graphics. Okay, so right now I've got the perimeter selected and all of the mounting holes that I can find. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit Control and the D key, which will duplicate what I just selected. And I'm going to bring this over. And now you can see I've got a perimeter, a fairly clean perimeter, and all the mounting holes. And so now I really don't need this any longer, but because I never want to try to have to recreate something, I'm just going to take this and move it under here in case we need it. I'm going to make sure to come over here, come over here. I want to group this to make sure that none of these holes, mounting holes, move. Okay. And you can see that we've got some cleanup to do here. This is a great example of if you know how to node edit, you can clean this kind of stuff up quick. So let's say that I wanted to get rid of all of this stuff over here. I can go ahead and select it. I'm going to ungroup it because I can't node edit it when it's grouped. I'm going to select it by itself. I'm going to go over to my node editing tool and I'm going to zoom way in here, and I'm just going to go ahead and hover over this section right here and hit the D key for delete. Not the delete key, but the D key. And you notice now, I'm going to go ahead and just take this and connect this because we're going to change these anyway. And then now I can come over here to my select tool, select this and hit delete. And now I've just somewhat cleaned up that area. The next tool I want to show you that will clean this stuff up even more is, oh, we got some more node editing to do up here. So we're going to go back to node editing, do the same thing, hit the D key as I'm hovering over that space, come to my select tool, select this line that's not attached, come back to my node editing tool, grab this node and snap it to that node, and that cleaned that up. Now, here's the other thing you can do. If you haven't used the Optimize Shapes tool, this will show you what a game changer it can be. I want to just clean these up ever so slightly. So I'm going to just get out of that, select this rough elongated circle. I'm going to go to Tools. Actually, I think it's under Edit. Optimize Selected Shapes. Watch what happens when I play with these Optimize Selected Shapes sliders. I can clean that hole up a whole bunch, just so it's a little bit more evident. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go around here, edit, optimize selected shapes, turn this on, and just get rid of all those nasty jagged edges. Again, this is just kind of getting it so it's a little bit more refined. Edit, optimize selected shapes, turn that on, clean that up, we're done. We're just going around here just doing this just to get a little bit. And if we got something that's kind of weird, we can always come over here to our node editing tool. And here's the other benefit. I can just window in these nodes right here, hit the D key, and now we've cleaned that up. All right, anything else we got to clean up? Looks like this needs to be cleaned up. Cleaned it up a little bit, but not so much. I could actually just window these nodes, hit D, this window, this node, these nodes. And like I said, we're just looking for a little bit more refinement. We're going to actually dial these in much more, but we don't need all the jagged stuff. Okay, that pretty much cleans up our holes. So at this point, we can go ahead and regroup this just to make sure nothing gets bumped out of alignment and step on to the next process. The next thing we're going to do is we're getting ready to cut this, this very first template out just to compare it to the original, and that way we can start making our tweaks to make sure the size, the width, the height, the hole locations are where they need to be, those kind of things. And so my approach in this is going to be that I'm going to go ahead and ungroup this, because I'm going to go ahead and turn the outside perimeter red, because red is cut for me. Remember, I use color as a function, not as a setting, and it's way more efficient in my mind. Okay, so this is our cut line, the perimeter of the template. And then what I want to do to be able to verify that the holes that we've got illustrated here are going to work, I'm going to just score these intersections. So I'm just going to come down, I'm going to start from right to left, and that way anything that it touches, it's good. And I'm going to turn that to green, which is a score line. Okay, let's turn it on so you can see. And so what I'm going to do now, matter of fact, if we wanted to, we could come to our art library. If we wanted to do this, we could take our tattered flag design. Actually, that's not quite the one we want. This is the one we want. We could shrink it down. If we wanted to just throw it in the middle, we could do that. We can see that that's not quite going to work because of the mounting holes will just come up just a little bit. And at this point, if this was a cut, we could turn those red too. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and go to the laser and cut this out. Now, I'm not going to bore you with this, but I will take a picture of when it's cut out, kind of where we're at and where we're headed. And so when I cut this out, I'm going to compare it to the original and see what adjustments we need to make. Okay, I've cut this out of just 1/8 inch birch ply. And as you can see, we've got some minor adjustments to make. I've got to make this corner move over to the left. We've got about a little bit more than 1/4 inch. You definitely want to measure this with a set of calipers. And it looks like we need to make it just a little bit taller and bring this corner up just a little bit. But really not too bad. The bottom fits great. This side fits great. We just need to make it just ever so slightly taller. And this corner, or left-hand corner, we've got to move over to the left-hand side. And we're going to do that through node editing. I'm not too awfully concerned by where the hole placements are going to be. You'll see what will happen is if I would put, once we get this version 2 cut out, I will lay this on and start to match up these scored holes to make sure that I'm getting close. And from there, we'll work it in. So let's go ahead and go back into LightBurn, modify this template just a little bit taller, and that left corner needs to go out just a little bit. And before you know it, we're going to have a good template. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is change the height of this template by 1/8 of an inch. That's what it measured. And so what I've done is I've come in here, I've generated a 1 inch tall, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to highlight. I'm going to go to my node editing tool, and I'm going to come and I'm just going to pick a point right on this line right here. I'm going to just hover over that and hit I for insert a node. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to delete this little section here. I'm going to come over here and follow it across. And I'm going to insert a node right here, I, and I'm going to delete this node back. Now this section here, the top section is free. So I'm going to be able to come over here and select this entire top section. And I'm going to hold the Control key and Shift key down at the same time and use my up arrow. And that way I get very small increments. And right there is where I'm going to go ahead. And now we've just elongated that section by 1/8 of an inch. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here, click this, go back to my node editing and snap it in place there. Come over here and do the same thing. Grab the green box, grab it, snap it to the other node. And now we've just elongated that by 1/8 of an inch. Now, here's the other thing you want to do when you're node editing. You'll notice in a lot of cases, you want to make sure that it's a closed shape, and it looks like it is now. But you just want to verify that those connections that were broken in that line, when you stretch that back out and reattach those nodes, that it all thinks it's a closed shape, and that way it won't give you any problems. So we've lengthened, or we've actually grew the height by 1/8 of an inch. Now we've got to move this corner over by 0.30 of an inch. Show you how to do that next. Okay, I remeasured this, and this is actually, we need to grow this corner out to the left by 1/4 of an inch. So I've generated a tool layer that is 1/4 of an inch wide. I've snuggled it up against this edge, and what we want to do is we want to move this corner over so it's touching this area here. And so the best way to do that is I'm going to go ahead and select my perimeter. I'm going to go into my node editing tool, and I'm going to just get rid of a bunch of nodes. So it looks like to me we can come here, get rid of that. I'm going to just come over here, back it out about where it breaks over. Get rid of that. Nope. Next one over. Get rid of that. And then we'll do the same thing over here. We'll hit the D key for that. And the D key for that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this. Get rid of it, delete. I'm going to select this, delete. And all I'm going to do is take this corner, zoom in. I'm going to hold the Shift and the Control key down, and I'm going to left arrow till it gets close there, roughly right about there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go back to I'm going to take this and just extend it, snap it there, and do the same thing over here. Grab this green box and snap it there. And now I've got some minor adjustments to make. What I'll probably do is get rid of all of these nodes. That'll straighten that out. And now I've got that to where I can go ahead and cut out a new template. And once we cut out a new template, make sure that the perimeter lines up. The next thing we're going to do is put this new template in the fairing of the bike and trace the holes, and make sure that the holes that we trace on the fairing end up in these boxes. Cut out a new template. I verified that the edges match up very well. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the fairing of the bike, put it in place, and trace the mounting holes. You can see that I've done that. Kind of where these oblong original mounting holes are. And then we'll go back to LightBurn and dial those in based on what I'm seeing here. So I'll show you, I'll take a picture of what that looked like when I was tracing it, and then we'll jump back into LightBurn and we can refine the mounting holes compared to what we see here. So I've just dropped that template into the fairing and just wanted to make sure those, I drew some, with a pencil, drew some marks on that template. And then from that, we'll jump into LightBurn and rearrange the mounting holes, and we should be in pretty good shape. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and start to align the holes based on the tracing that we did, where we put the fairing of the bike on the template and drew some pencil marks. And I'll put a picture up here on the right hand side so you can see where I'm referring. So we're starting on the upper left hand corner. This is a 1/4 inch circle that I've made. It's about what we want. That's going to be similar to the holes that we're going to put into this fairing. So we'll go ahead, and you can see that it's up towards the middle of that. And we're going to go ahead and put it right about there. Okay, we're going down to the middle left, and you can see that it's going to be right off that point, so roughly in there. Good thing about it is we'll cut out another template once we get all these in, just to make sure that everything matches up with the mounting holes. If we've got to tweak the individual holes a little bit up, down, left, right, we will certainly do that. That's the tedious part of this process. And I'm going to follow that process for all of these holes. I'm not going to bore you with all of these, but that's exactly what I did. I just compared the picture of the bigger hole and compared it to where the pencil mark was, and tried to match these 1/4 inch holes where the pencil mark was, and I did that all the way around the template. Okay, we're going to go ahead and cut out this template. I've put in the holes where I think they need to be based on the pencil marks that we had on our last version of our template. And we will verify that these hole locations are going to be lining up with the fairing on the bike. And at that point, then we'll go ahead and jump in to kind of doing some design work on the ventilation holes and how we knocked out this flag and get finished up with this template. The next thing that we've got to do if we're going to start putting all these holes in this template is I want to make sure that I'm going to turn all these mounting holes a different color, because once we start getting all these other ventilation holes in here, these will get lost because they're going to be a 1/4 inch hole as well, and it will be very hard to tell the mounting holes from the ventilation holes. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to select all of the different mounting holes. I've been holding the shift key down, and I'm just going to turn this a different color. I'm going to use 07 just so I know that if I want to turn these on or off when I'm selecting the rest of these holes, I can. So for right now, we can even come in here and say deselect this. We can come up here and we can put mounting holes, just so we know what those are. And now if I need to, I have the ability to turn those completely off along with the original scoring. And now I can go ahead and start putting in the ventilation holes. Now that we've got our mounting holes a different color identified, so we can turn those on or off over here in our cuts and layers tab. We've got our our original score on a different color. We've got our graphic right now in a different color. So everything is individually on a separate layer, and you're going to see why that's important as we go forward. So the first thing I need to do is I want to use an outline feature on the flag. So I'm going to select the flag. I'm going to come over here to outline. I'm going to click it. I'm going to say outside. I want to make sure that we're only doing the outer shapes only. I want to make sure that it's rounded, and then I'm going to start bumping this up. And I'm going to grow it up enough to where it's very subtle. You can see that it's almost like a cloud-like. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to say okay to that. And then to smooth this outline out a little bit, I'm going to go back to a feature that we've used once before already, optimize selected shapes, and I'm going to smooth this out. So you can see we're taking out a lot of the little bumps. It's just getting smoother and smoother. You can say okay to that. And you can come in here, you could note edit, those kind of things. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to outline one more time. And that just smooths it even more. If I wanted to, I could get rid of this. And now I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to go back to my outline and go inside. And that's probably about the buffer that I want. Again, you can make it whatever thickness of buffer you want. We'll say okay to that. We'll get rid of this. And this is going to be our guideline. So when we start putting in all of these holes, we're going to want to delete any holes that are within this perimeter. So what we're going to do next is we'll go ahead and generate these holes. I'll show you how to do that. We'll come back, we'll get rid of the holes that are in conflict with either our mounting holes, our design, and at that point, we will have a new template for this show bike. All right, let's go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and turn off all of my mounting holes, just so they're not in conflict right now. I'm going to turn off the score line. So basically I have a template and I have a kind of a clean slate. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over here. We're going to hold the shift key down and I'm going to draw out a circle. I need to turn on my red and we want to make these a 1/4 inch hole. So we'll just make this 2.5. And so we've got a 1/4 inch hole now. And what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we've got our hole selected. We're going to come down to our rectangular array. And one thing that we want to make sure that we have selected is shift by half. And I'll show you what that means. So as we generate these holes across the top, and once we've got our columns now, once we add our rows, I want it to reverse the direction. I want it to go down, and I also want to build some space between those holes, okay? And so as we add rows, it's going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And we're going to do that all the way down. And we're going to say okay. And at this point, we've got a bunch of our holes, our ventilation holes, but we've got some work to do to delete the ones that are going to be in conflict with our mounting holes. So now what we're going to do is turn on our mounting holes, and now you can see why I wanted those mounting holes a different color. I'm going to come in here, and these are grouped, so I got to ungroup them. And at this point, I'm just going to come through and delete any of the ventilation holes that are in conflict or close to the mounting holes. So if they're really close, I'm just going to get rid of them because a lot of this area you're not going to see. It's hidden by the fairing of the bike anyway. And all we're doing is we're just coming down along here. We're getting rid of the ventilation holes that are in conflict. You can see this goes pretty fast, but this is a great way to tell the mounting holes from the other holes. And just like that, we've got those conflicts taken care of. All right. Now I'm going to turn on the flag image and the offset. And so what we've got to do is we've got to delete the holes in that. And what I'll do is I will turn the red holes off for just a minute. We'll take this and delete it for right now. Turn these back on. And now I can go ahead and just use my window. I've noticed that the Boolean functions don't work real well on something like this. And so it's just as fast to kind of clean these up quick. And I know this is taking a little bit more time, but because this process is somewhat involved, I wanted to make sure you guys saw what I was doing. And really, once we get these holes cleaned up, I'd undo that, Control Z. All right, I think that's actually in pretty good shape. And so at this point, now we've removed the holes from the mounting holes and also where the graphic's going to be. And we're ready to go ahead and engrave this, cut it out, and see what it looks like on the bike. And that's about it. That's really the entire process in order to get this template done. I hope you guys enjoyed the information. If you did, I'd sure appreciate a thumbs up. If you could give me if you haven't subscribed, please do so. We're over 30,000 subscribers now, still going strong. I really appreciate everything you guys are doing. If you have the ability, hit that thanks button and contribute to the channel. I really would appreciate that. Let me know if this longer content that's a little bit more in depth is what you'd like to see in the future. Give me a comment. Let me know one way or the other. I sure appreciate it. Thanks and have a great day.